do it. You know, when it comes to engineers, I always feel like, once again, I said this earlier, we're such introverts. But once again, I do appreciate everyone for being here. Make some noise for yourselves and engineers for putting this all together and stuff like that.
Come on, y'all.
Yeah. So I think you sit there. We'll have Jess sit right there. Does that make sense? Okay, that makes perfect sense. All right, everybody. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to sit down with someone that I really, really respect, someone that I'm actually a big fan of. You're going to find out why. This man has created so many sounds and stuff like that you've heard, from Doja Cat to Burna Boy. I'm going to ask him a lot of questions that I feel like we all probably have. I'm really excited to kind of showcase this guy and just give him his flowers and talk to him and pick his brain. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Jessie Ray. Jessie Ray, come out here, my brother.
Now bring in the cocktail.
Cool,
Thank you.
No problem. Take a seat. Jesse, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good. I see you got the drink in hand, just chilling out, sipping out, just relaxing.
Just chilling, man.
It's a good vibe. How are we all doing out there? Everybody feeling good with the NAMM 2024 show.
That's a fact. As you can see, this is a very eccentric character. This is why we were vibing back there. But, you know, Jesse, it's such a pleasure to have you here. I'll be honest with you. And for anyone that's a fan of the AudioNerds podcast, anybody know about the AudioNerds podcast? Cool. Jesse was probably the first engineer that ever reached out to us and just kind of gave us any kind of flowers or just any kind of confidence or stuff like that. So I do want to say thank you. I really appreciate that. And I did want to give you your flowers publicly for that because you really did not give you credit for that. Please make some noise for this guy because seriously, it really gave us a lot of confidence and stuff like that. So I appreciate that. But
what you guys are doing for the community is dope. It's meaningful. It's important. What we do is meaningful and important. And you're bringing a voice to all of us, man. So
thank you, man. I appreciate that, though. I appreciate that. And I'm glad I get to sit and talk to you because the funny thing is, not only do I get to sit and talk to you and just chop it up, I'm literally here to learn myself, personally. So I just feel like...
Me too.
You know, like, I just want to just understand a few things from you. You know, I know a lot of your techniques, and I kind of want to know where they come from. But what I'll ask you this, as far as your career goes now, you're a very busy guy right now. Like, I know that for sure. You have a very interesting way of how you approach your percussion. Like, when it comes to like the Afrobeat sound and stuff like that, and of course you do other stuff as well, but particularly in Afrobeats, you have this very interesting way of how you accentuate percussion. Like your stuff hits like hip hop, but it still has that very sparse feeling of what I want from Afrobeats and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. How are you attacking drums and percussion and stuff like that when it comes to like what you do in your mixing and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to blow out the low end and get this either a really tight thing or a really just explosive, decaying kind of thing. Sort of reminiscent of like early 2000s Timbaland, sort of the way that things were just like sounding kind of like a busted boombox.
Yeah.
So I think of the low end that way. But the top end really is just, I want to keep it extremely transient, not compressing things, not pushing anything downward, but just letting all of the stickiness and the stick and the ticky-tackiness of those different types of drums way up front.
Right.
And just really, really punchy.
Right. And you know, I see you do that with, for instance, I seen you do it a lot with your plugin that's called Subloom. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Black Friday, shout out to Black Friday, because I made sure I went and got that. But I like the way that you were using the plugin Subloom because I seen that you were taking, and this is kind of saying what you were saying about like kicks and stuff back in the 90s, where you're basically putting like a little bit of a sub kind of underneath the kick that also feels blown out and stuff like that. Like that, did that come from that time period? And is that something that you like to do a lot, like with your kicks and stuff like that?
Yeah, 100%. This was a really big trick back in the day, was gating a kind of sine wave that would be tuned to a specific pitch. So, whenever your kick happens, you would have a kind of this, and the extension of that theory is what I like to do, is automate the pitch downward, which this is, exactly what physically happens when a real drum is struck. Right. You get the initial pitch, but it decays and it dives down. So you get this, and when you're in the club or you're in the car and you get this, at least in my experience, when I feel great low end, it has that effect. Just this, It begins, you hear the initial transient, and then the sound kind of dives downward, and it's this delicious low-end effect. And so that's what I was attempting to go for.
Got you with
there.
it. Yeah, because when I seen you do it, it really filled up the entire production. Like I seen some of your stuff, obviously, that you put up and things of that nature when you showed that stuff, and it really filled up production. It really caught me by surprise when you did that.
I was gonna actually say, yeah, on the subject of your transients in the top end, how you keeping the transients intact, but at the same time, making sure those hits aren't so abrasive. How are you doing that? Because again, as Dev said, your high-end transients and percussion, it's very bright and
Snaps.
alive, but it's so pleasing to the ear. So how are you accomplishing even that?
Yeah, it's a combination of a couple of things. So you have something like Eventide split EQ, where you can take the attack frequency and you can find where the transient is really pushing. And I kind of find where the vocal transient and the diction and the articulation, the bite of the vocal that's giving us, really clear definition as to what the lyrics are. I try to pull that out of the attack in the middle. So it's a combination of split EQ with mid-side kind of technique, right? So I'll pull that attack out of the middle and maybe emphasize it in different areas and refocus it in different areas on the sides.
Gotcha.
Kind of work it around. But a lot of the time, Afrobeats artists will just hit me back and be like, hey, that's not enough percussion. So right where I think it's perfectly mixed with the vocal speaking, they'll say, no, percussion needs to be on top of the vocal. That is just a really,
And at that point, would you ease back up on the Eventide EQ or just turn the whole volume up on the percussion since you already controlled it?
It's a really good question. I think this is one of those scenarios where when you get a mixed note like that, you kind of have to step back and say, is that really what they want? Or do they, what do they want? And I think most of the time, they want what they heard in the reference. And whatever the session was doing in the reference generally is how I will put it back. So usually I'll just take the plugins off, I'll put the balance back to where they had it, because generally with those levels, like, it was hitting correctly.
Right.
We simply, I hear a lot of mixers bash what happened in the reference mix, or they will bash what, it's like, no, we cannot underestimate the value of the decisions they made. These are very, very smart and very talented people. They know exactly where they wanted that hit to be. It's not an accident. These records happen, and it's a beautiful thing, and we have to stay the fuck out of the way.
Right.
So if they wanted that snare there, I'm putting that snare back exactly where they had it. Wow. But at least in the first round, I tried to massage it.
You tried to test it out and stuff like that. It was funny. You mentioned the split EQ, and correct me if I'm wrong. With the split EQ, I understand that you're able to EQ the transient different from the tone, right? So that's what makes it really special, and that's why actually when I see you use it, and now that I'm hearing you explain it that way, it makes a lot of sense. So you're able to basically say, okay, well, I want more of a transient sound in the vocal on this range, frequency-wise, as opposed to that side, like as far as like the mid-range and stuff like that. Is that something that you commonly like to play with a lot? Like more transient information like in the top end of the vocal as opposed to like the mid-range?
Yeah. A lot of the time with vocals, I do feel like a vocal is precious, and it's generally something that an artist will have spent arguably the most time on. So I am really careful about digging in with an intense tool like that.
Right.
But it is one of the tools I enjoy using.
Right. It actually blows my mind. Like now hearing you explain it, and like I told you, I'm genuinely just asking questions that I really want to know. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is your setup. So I've seen a few pieces that I might go broke for. That I've seen in your setup. One in particular, you have, I believe it's called the Whitestone, the Evil. Oh my God, dude, I never even heard of it until I seen you use it. But can you do me a favor? Can you just take me through your D to A, coming back into your system? Like, what is your entire setup as far as everything in your studio?
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah, there's a lot. I have a couple of racks that are full of pieces of gear that I really enjoy that aren't always getting used, but lately the Whitestone is the one piece of outboard living on the master that I really love. So I'm using, I guess for converters, I'm using the Apogee Symphony Mark II, the new one. The
special edition.
Yep, the special
edition. I have
edition.
the same, shout out to you. Okay, bet.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It is wonderful. How do you feel, honestly, how do you feel about it? Because I never met anyone that actually had the special edition with me. Like I've never met anyone. How do you, when did you get it and how do you feel about that interface so far? Like, what did you notice when you got it? Like,
Well, I didn't notice anything
Okay.
at first,
Uh-huh.
but now a year later after getting it, I was monitoring on the Grace M905.
Gotcha.
And I've been moving studios, so I'm now off of that, and I've been forced to switch to a mobile rig. So I'm only on the Symphony as my main monitoring DAC.
gotcha.
And I will say that I am completely pleased, and I'm not missing the Grace.
Wow, crazy.
So I'm monitoring off of that thing, and
Right.
it's wonderful.
Right. So then from there, basically, you would say the main thing that really comes out and back in is that Whitestone Evil saturated. Can you tell me about that piece by any chance? Because I was talking to Baines the other day, and he was like, "You got to get the black one that Jesse got. Like this one is crazy."
Yeah.
What is that piece? Because just for context, I looked at one of his videos where I believe he was mixing Doja Cat's "Woman," right? And you put that saturated, that Whitestone audio piece on, and it had like this glue and warmth that it gave to the sound that I really enjoyed. What is that piece, and how did you like stumble on that piece?
Yeah, this thing is great. it's special, and I love this. First of all,
Okay.
Talking about gear, I get so excited.
Nerds, bro.
So allow me to just dork out a little bit.
Facts.
Sure.
Make some noise.
ahead.
Make some noise for all the nerds in the room. Make some noise, man.
Come on, we all audio nerds in here.
If there's one place on earth you could talk about gear, like I'm like, yeah, bro, this is it, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a 2-channel tube line amplifier. You could think of the age-old technique of maybe running your mix through 2 Pultecs,
Right.
Like a tube EQ
Right.
or some of the Fern stuff. Like just getting some tubes in your signal path is great and important, or the Fairchild or something like that. The beauty of this box is it has incredibly high headroom and low distortion. So what I mean by that is I can get a session into mix where I've literally opened the session for the first time from an artist. It's time to mix. And it's already coming in at -6 LUFS. This is a hot session. I can't go any quieter. And traditionally, with older vintage tube gear, I want to impose some of my flavor, but you cannot drive that level of signal into those old boxes. It will crumble.
Right.
It will fall apart. And with this thing, there is so much headroom. I could have a mix at -3 LUFS. Sometimes you get something really glued. It actually can sound good at that level. It's fine.
Right.
You send it out to this box and send it back in, and it's perfectly gain matched, and it's wonderful. But it's just a little more
Just beef, just
alive,
better.
especially in the mid-range. The mid-range blooms and has this rich harmonic detail that you can just reach in and grab it.
Right.
It's wonderful and it's captivating.
Right.
And I'm really skeptical at this point, especially when it comes to processes and outboard that's going to slow my workflow down.
Right.
Because with me and my assistant, we have to print stems manually. Having a piece of outboard means that it is going to take longer to do the work and means we can do less work in the day.
Right.
And that's not good. I want to get out of there. I want to go home and hang out with my kids. That's what I want to do.
Right,
So,
I get you.
But this thing is completely worth it. And it sounds so
Amazing.
freaking good.
When I seen you use it, I was pretty blown away. One thing I will say, when a mix comes in at -3 LUFS, you call that FL Studio producer and you tell him tone it down.
Yeah, chill, bro.
Yo, chill, bro. It's FL
Chill
Studio.
on the God. We love the God particle. Chill on that. We
Chill
don't
on
need
it.
2 God particles in a row, both at 200%.
Just dial it back. Just dial it back a bit.
You got to back up a bit. So one thing that you touched on that I'm really interested in is the fact that you're saying that you're trying to be, it sounds like you're trying to kind of be more in the box with things and stuff like that and be more mobile. Is it because that, you're getting more work, that you need to be more fast about recalling sessions and stuff like that? Like what's forcing you to be more mobile now with everything?
No, it's more that just at this stage in the game in 2024, my job is generally to open a session that's pretty much been decided by the entire team. The artist, the producer, the A&R, the manager, they have all decided this record is complete. This is essentially, we love it. It is releasable. Just tighten up the screws a little bit. They're expecting me to, most of the time, dive in and pull out a few resonances and maybe just get the beat working.
Right.
And by adding anything, if I were to throw my hardware Blue Stripe 1176, on the vocal, that's going to transform the sound.
True.
And not in they already had it sounding the way they wanted.
Right.
So it's not a laziness thing. But when I got the Whitestone, it was
a wrap.
This is a way that I can instantly improve what they had without even needing to go in and do a whole lot.
Right.
And it's
Just transcends everything. This is not an ad for this Whitestone audio piece. I'm serious. And
yeah, it's not. I bought it at full price.
facts. Look at that. You got to say that because like that Whitestone piece really blew my mind. But I've been talking to a lot of engineers, like yourself, that I've been seeing starting to like kind of bring things down in a sense of being able to recall faster and stuff like that. Like it's really fascinating to see, and I'm trying to figure out like why. I'm thinking, is it because of the speed of your workflow and stuff like that? Like, are you getting a lot of work now, and that's kind of making you kind of shift things a little bit as far as like needing to be more efficient and stuff like that, as far as recalling sessions on this song? Like, is that another factor that you're noticing these days now?
No, not necessarily, because bouncing a mix in 3 minutes versus the offline bounce, which is like going to be 2 minutes, it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Very true. Yeah.
Ultimately, but I do think it's really important to prioritize our ability to serve our clients quickly. And this is the entire reason, I might be shifting gears here, but this is the entire reason I've always had my studio at my house. This is the difference of being able to deliver a revision to a client after they send you a text like, hey man, can I get the vocal up like a couple dB and can we change the ending? Like, yeah. I'll get it to you in like 20 minutes, no problem.
Right.
Yeah, I'll do it right now. I'm right here, no problem.
Right.
Versus, oh man, I'm already at home. I'll send it to you tomorrow morning. Like that micro interaction, it might not seem a lot, but time and time and time and time again, hundreds and hundreds of times over of being able to deliver like within the hour or within the couple of hours, and just being on call and being like enthusiastic to serve my clients and give them my best. To like get up off the couch and just walk to the other room and bounce their mix at 10 o'clock at night is no problem. And it means a lot to them.
Right.
Because like they might be at a freaking meeting or at the club, they're about to play the thing. It's like really important, it's right for them. And they have opportunities, and we are here to facilitate and make their life great. Right. And we want to, everybody talks about wanting to grow with an artist and build with an artist, and that's how we do it. We gotta be there for them. Right. Like we are sometimes, I am like the bitch for the artist, and I'm okay with that. Like I will be your bitch. I fucking love being the computer bitch. You pay me, and that's great, but I get to sit at the computer. I get the best job in the world, and I'm here to help you send your message out to the world and make people get fucking goosebumps when they had a bad day and they turn up the song and they feel great. Right. That's what we're here to do, man. It's powerful.
I get that. Another thing that I've seen with you is that that kind of blew my mind was you were mixing a song and you brought up a Paz analyzer. Okay. Anybody know what a Paz analyzer? Paz analyzer, we got fans. Old shit. Hey, but a lot of people still use that, Paz analyzer, I'm not gonna lie. And you were saying to yourself, my dad always told me if I see that slope going from the low end to the high end, kind of like on that slope, I'm pretty much probably good. Mm-hmm. I paused that part in the video because I said to myself, your dad taught you, and it made me want to know so many things. Because what is that situation like? How did your dad teach you? Like, what was that like for you?
It was awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Like, imagine my dad, bro, showing me how to EQ a vocal. Like, that's wild to me. Like, and for me, that just, because see, like this, I know probably some of us in here, not all of our parents are musicians or artists. I'm sure your parents don't even know what the hell you probably do. You know what I mean, as far as what we do. So it kind of threw me up because I was wondering, like, did you learn a lot of stuff from your dad? Like, was that something that like came into your life? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, and it was really cool. Let me paint the picture for
you. Please.
My dad is kind of a cowboy. He lives in rural Minnesota. He has a mustache, and he wore a cowboy hat, and he would produce country bands and contemporary Christian music in Minneapolis. And we had a good just blue collar living type situation. And he was really just nuts and bolts about the utility of these tools. And he had one way of doing everything. And if I ever suggested anything else, It was, nope, that's not the way we do it. Typical dad fashion. He had his ways, but his rule for the PAZ analyzer was something that did stick with me, and it was that, you're watching that curve in RMS mode.
Oh, okay.
Peak detection mode will show you even distribution of energy across the spectrum with a flat mix, a balanced mix. And RMS will show you that the low end has the most energy, and then it kind of slopes downward from there, from the left to the right. For you guys out there, left to right. Yeah.
There we go.
And the interesting thing about it, he taught me this like 15 years ago.
Right.
And almost 2 decades ago now, the low end at that time in modern music was like 10 dB lower than it is now.
Right.
The 2010s brought a substantial increase in low end.
Right.
And the 2020s is like,
Oh, I don't know where we are now, dude.
Ali, if you're in here, whenever Damn came out, that kind of rewrote the book on where low end should live.
for sure. What's funny about you is that I feel like low end wise, like with Afrobeats, as far as what I used to hear back in like the 2010s or early 2000s with Afrobeats to now, I feel like that low end has caught up like to that like sound that you've kind of created. And
Yeah,
stuff
at
like
one point it wasn't as like even going back to other genres that inspired it, like dancehall, reggaeton. At certain points, the bass and the kick were prominent, but they weren't the focus as like with R&B and with hip hop. But now, as Dev just said, it's like caught up to where no, we're competing with hip hop, but at the same time, there's still not a loss in the balance of the low end is higher up now in terms of volume, but the focus is still the high end, the mid range. So
for you especially, like I said, dude, I've always been really fascinated with the way, for instance, like on Last, like Burna Boy's Last. Dude, like the way it rolls off a speaker, like it's so clicky. Like when you said clicky, I was like, good, that tells me that you have that in mind. Like the clickiness of the percussion is what I feel separates like a weaker, like kind of Afrobeat record from a strong, more modern one is the way you have that percussion. So that's why I was interested. But would you say that split EQ is kind of like that one little trick that you use for like that clickiness to gain that stuff in the percussion and stuff like that?
I don't remember.
Yo, I could pull up that video, right? I wish. But yeah, I mean, that's what always bugged me out, like when it came to that. Because the way that record first starts, you're not expecting it. Like I remember when it first came out, it was Burna Boy, Last. We heard the sample. I was like, oh, this is gonna be dope. And then when the drums came in, I was like, what is this? And immediately the percussions caught me off guard because it was hitting like a hip hop record. So that's why I was asking you, as far as your percussion, like what you do to it to really get it to sound so transient and clicky.
Yeah. Well, I think the kick drum is sort of the lead vocal of that song.
Interesting. Wow. Good. Right. Understood.
That was the focus. Like I think the kick drives that song. I had a theory kind of throughout the 90s and 2000s that like the snare drum was the complete way to discern a bad mix from a good mix. And with styles of music, that were around back then, I think it was about the snare. And everything now, it's like it's the kick and the 808. How is that working? Is the relationship right? That's what defines a good mix.
Right.
And with Last, when that came in, it was a very Afrobeats type of kick. So it had similar low end to what's there. But there was no top end and no push. And I think so much of how the low end happens and the impact of great low end in a great mix is what the mid range is doing. Like how is your 1K pushing? How is there a 4K presence in the top? But like specifically for that song, it was a big SSL like 9 dB increase at like 1K to get the psh
on the kick.
Yeah, so if you listen to it really quietly, and specific, I think I was on NS10s when I mixed it, it's just like, if you listen really quietly, you can hear it. The transient is like,
right, gotcha.
And then in the low end, it was just about blowing it up. I put like one of the Kush Omega N plugins on there. And,
okay.
The kick before was a little clean. It was like
right.
Then blowing it up, running it through that preamp circuit, and gave it the
right,
and it turned it into this fucking fire-breathing dragon. Made it, we want, and with that type of tempo where you don't have a bunch of kicks, it's like there's so much room for it to breathe.
Right, right.
There's room for it to decay for like fucking a second.
Right. I feel like, Jesse, you should release like a vocal sound pack. Like I really do. Like I genuinely just do. Like I can see he's in there like I need the ooh, the ah, the ooh. I know the question that him and I want to ask.
Can
really
I actually
bad.
lead into that? I want you to ask it.
Go
But
ahead. You can lead into it.
Want
Yeah.
to bring up something else, actually. And to be fair, I'm newer as a user to Pro Tools, so I didn't really know this was like a thing that could be done. But to those of you that know, Pro Tools has, especially depending on what edition you're using, unlimited array of like inserts and auxes and sends that you have at your disposal.
Right.
Jesse was the first engineer, and I'm not saying this has never been done before, but it's the first time I saw it been done, where with this next question that I was about to ask you, I saw you link a bunch of auxes that had different effects to one, because I thought about it.
People talk about this, and I thought it was just lazy, but it's like become praised.
It's mine.
It's really,
bro,
because I'm really sitting here and I'm just like, you know, of course, you're the Pro Tools guy. So I'm just like, okay, Ableton is one thing for me. How can I do this in my Pro Tools session? How did Jesse do this? And I thought about it, and I'm just looking at the inserts, and I'm like, wait a second. So if I name this the same insert as that, and I'm just muting the tracks and just altering the volume, I didn't know that you can just connect to just one insert and just have it send out 3 different channels with different effects.
I'm gonna lay the land out, and then I'm gonna let you. So I got you. So long story very short, there was a session that he had, and he had a cascade of effects, right? So let's imagine you have all of your favorite reverbs up. You have 7 different reverbs that you love. Let's say you got a autotune vocal reverb here, Valhalla here, a Seventh Heaven reverb here, just all set up like auxes in your session. Cool, got it? Hold that memory. Each one, the input is actually the same. So you know how you would call that one, this is my Valhalla reverb insert, this is my Seventh Heaven reverb like channel on the bus and stuff. You would name them. Instead, he's naming it verb. So imagine naming all of them verb. Now, granted, if I turn up the send on the actual channel of the vocal, it'll go to all of them at one time, right? Cool. Instead, what he was doing was all of them are turned down. He's literally throwing out that one send to the cascade of effects, and then he's just throwing up the verb and saying, that one, oh, I like 3 dB of that one, 4 dB of that one, 1 dB of that one, 3 dB of that one. And the sound that he was able to create was blowing my mind, because it made me realize, wow, instead of using that one reverb, now I'm creating a blend in real time of 5 different reverbs, long, short. This one is a plate, this one is a tight room. How did you come up with that like chain? I know that might sound lazy, but dude, like when I seen you do it, it was so more like, because you know how people say like, oh, you should like add saturation to your reverbs and try to make them different. But the way you were doing it as far as the blending like that so quickly, like, I don't like that. I like this. Like, I see how you just throw things up. Like, how did you come up with that whole like idea of cascading the effects through one send?
Easy. It's really a pain in the ass to set up sends, I think. Hitting that button, send to new track, naming it. So I think in my template at one point, I would make one send, and then I duplicated it like 15 times and just set up all the different scenarios that I could possibly want to use. And then over time, over the years, I would like import ones like, oh, I mixed that vocal on that song was really special, or that effect from that one record, that engineer decided that this, he made this preset, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to put it in my template. So I put together this long array of reverbs, long array of delays, and that way I can audition them really quickly. I don't have to open the plugin, change the preset, no, change the preset, no, close this plugin, let's open a new. I don't have time for all that. Right. I want to throw up all this stuff really quickly. I want instant gratification.
Right.
It's my money and I want it now. So we gotta. I feel like there is a really, really important period of time when you're working on a song when you have the fresh perspective. Right. It's like 60 minutes, and like after that, you'll never hear the song the same way again.
That's so true.
It's sort of like it's like when you want to. I don't want to influence any. I don't even know if I can say this. Influence drug use or whatever, but like. It's like when you time out the drugs the right way to where you're gonna hit and you're gonna be able to just fucking get in the zone. Like I have all the guitars plugged in. I'm gonna hit a flow state. I'm good. I don't need to wire anything in. I'm just like, I'm gonna hit my zone. I'm gonna hit record. I'm gonna be good.
Right.
No bad vibes for this experience for the next 9 hours.
That makes sense.
It's what mixing needs to be for me. And I'm gonna be able to get in and like make the song speak really, really, really quickly.
Right.
Bad analogy.
Yeah,
I
it's
shouldn't
okay.
have said that.
Drugs, it's okay. That when him and I first had seen that, and that's why I have him here with me right now, because the minute you released it, I don't know if I was the first person that posted it, like immediately. Like as soon as I knew that you had, released just you showing how you just did Doja Cat's Woman and stuff like that, I immediately wanted to know because obviously it's one of our favorite songs that we love. And, we were trying to just see your process and how you went about it. One other thing that you did that, and this is our big question for me personally, is the vocal. So within this cascading effects thing that you did, you also did something that has literally opened my mind up to an entire new spectrum or idea of mixing vocals. And we started calling you the phase monster. This is what we call you, by the way. We call you the phase monster. Because
Or the 3D man.
the 3D, or the 3D,
3D
man.
man.
And the reason why we call you this, this is crazy. We talk about audio, crazy. It's because you took a bunch of time delays, right? So for instance,
Time
adjusters.
Yeah.
You did a bunch of timing effects and used them in parallel with the vocal to create like this three-dimensional like kind of sound for Doja's vocal. So basically just to set the scale for you, same thing, cascade of effects, but this time he had like a micro shift kind of like cascade of effects where it was just a time adjuster delaying the timing between the left and the right channel. Now, if you know, when you do that kind of phase shifting, you get a lot of different like spatial kind of sounds. Granted, sometimes you have things that could be more phasey and stuff like that, but the way he was doing it with different kind of effects was interesting to me. How did you come up with that? Because when you was throwing up and auditioning the different kind of like time adjuster plugins and stuff you created, her vocal, I couldn't believe how 3D and like how much depth and dimension it was adding to the vocal without me even really like hearing it. It was just like a feeling I kept getting.
Feeling.
Yeah. That really has changed. I'm not gonna lie, like that is a go-to for me now. Like, how did you come up with that technique and stuff like that?
Same. That was a magic thing. It was like 2018. I started to realize that like, okay, the H3000 trick is like that's really old. Everybody's been doing that. So I was just trying to find ways to recreate that. And I was learning by listening to some of my favorite mixes that sometimes getting that EQ sparkle and that beautiful sounding vocal isn't even EQ on the vocal. Sometimes it's just doing a really bright, stereoized kind of pseudo stereo thing.
Right.
And I learned that I usually like a combination of 2 or 3 of those happening at once in different settings.
Right.
So, instead of just putting one micro shift in parallel with the mix all the way up, you'd maybe have that, and then you maybe have another one that's the H3000 that's EQ'd nice and bright. I like it to be EQ'd bright. I like to make sure that these parallel shifty buses are not mid-rangey or bulky.
Gotcha.
Because I don't need that info in the sides.
Right.
I want the sibilance.
The sip
the
like
bright,
that.
the heaven. This is
Gotcha.
This is the glimmer, and
Right.
that's the cool stuff that can float around in stereo.
Right. Wow.
And it feels good. You blend it in. It makes it sound expensive.
Dude,
No,
my
it's the
sound.
best. It's the best effect.
It's the best effect. Like
I've ever come across.
It's,
on a
it's
vocal.
so fun.
Yeah, like I really implore everyone to watch that video where he's basically like mixing Doja Cat's a woman, because to be honest with you, I've never seen that effect. I've seen that effect to some effect. That made no sense. But when I seen him do it and kind of just how he was blending it with the original and how he had just a cascade of them in different tastes, it just opened my mind up to a new way to mix, where instead of like, these are my go-to, 4th delay, my 16th delay, my 8th note delay. It's like, no, I have even more stuff that I then audition and just kind of go. And it made me move faster, and I was more creative. I was way more creative as opposed to getting stuck. Because I know a lot of us will get stuck in those same kind of like auxes and reverbs and stuff like that.
I was gonna
but
say,
this
like,
broke it for me.
Essentially, it's almost just like redefining what an aux can be or what a send can be. You don't have to limit yourself to just like a delay, a parallel compressor, a reverb. You could do some crazy stuff with that.
For sure. One question I have for you, Jesse, is what at this moment is probably your favorite mix that you've done thus far? Like, what is your favorite mix that you've done thus far?
Yeah, probably last.
Let's go. Yo, I'm not gonna lie, you're the first one I was like, yo, look, the one that you all know. So last. And why would you say last? I have a million reasons,
Because it's
but why?
the best song I've ever gotten to mix.
Nice. Got you.
That is why. When
Wow.
I heard it before I had mixed it, and it became my favorite song. Like
Wow.
I was playing it in the car for months before it came out, and I was like, oh,
Wow.
I was just in it, and I was so excited for the world to hear this record. I was so excited. It was just tremendous and powerful and captivating. It just like, I felt like I was freaking LeBron about to walk out on the court. I was just like, oh,
Yeah, heck yeah.
adrenaline every time. And still, when I hear it, it's my kids love that song.
That's
like
what's
my
wild.
2-year-old. She'll hear the samples start to play, and she says, "That's Burna Boy." Like, yeah.
I love that. That's great. Well, once again, make some noise for Jesse Ray, y'all. Seriously, thank you for not gatekeeping. Thank you for giving game and kind of letting us know what your process and stuff like that was. That really means a lot. I come from the school of they wouldn't tell us. I would have to just steal sessions.
Same here, and that was bullshit.
It was.
It just
Thank you. Thank you.
These people that did that are coming from a place of fear, and we do not need to trust them, and we shouldn't listen to them. Because they suck.
Do you guys want a Jesse Ray sound bank? I think we should. When you're mixing, it's just like Jesse Ray. No, once again, man, thank you. I want to give you flowers. Once again, you genuinely, dude, you were the first engineer that I knew, that I respected, that really reached out to us and was just like, hey man, I love what you guys are doing.
You guys fucking rule. You're
Thank
giving
you,
out
man.
good information.
Thank you,
It
man.
is so rare. It's unfortunately rare.
Thank
Why is
you.
that so fucking hard for people to give good info?
I don't-
Helpful, useful info.
I don't
We're all
know.
just trying to make great records, right?
True.
Let's share the wealth, baby.
True.
You guys are awesome. Thank you, NAMM 2024.
Everyone, thank
I
you
just
so
did your
much.
send out.
I
I'm
know.
so stolen.
That was fire. No, that was tough. That was
He said, yeah,
OGs.
that's it. Take the show. But hope everybody enjoyed. But thank you guys so much for coming in and listening to us. And I hope you enjoyed the rest of them. Audio Nerds Podcast will be back here at 1 p.m. tomorrow. And let's keep this thing going.